Artificial intelligence requires massive amounts of physical hardware to function. We are now pushing the physical limits of what our planet can actually host. In 2025 alone, companies poured $580 billion into AI infrastructure. By 2026, the energy demand to keep those global data centers running is projected to exceed 500 terawatt-hours. That is roughly the entire electricity consumption of Germany, required just to keep the servers humming. That exponential demand translates directly into a massive industrial footprint on the ground. Facilities requiring up to 80 megawatts of power are now being constructed directly adjacent to quiet residential zones. At the same time, governments recognize that relying on foreign corporations for compute power is a security risk. Nations are now racing to build sovereign AI, a mandate to develop independent artificial intelligence models powered by domestic energy grids and trained on localized data to protect national interests and culture. Building these sovereign facilities on Earth guarantees a direct collision with our planet's hard resource limits. Powering massive sovereign AI models requires pushing local electricity grids to their absolute breaking point. Modern AI clusters demand constant, high-density energy that legacy infrastructure was never designed to handle. In regions like Northern Virginia, the strain has introduced physical instability to the grid. A single voltage sag can trigger a phenomenon known as sympathetic tripping, a cascading failure where sudden power fluctuations force dozens of interconnected data centers to shut down simultaneously to avoid hardware damage. The strain extends far upstream from the data centers themselves. Manufacturing the specialized chips and high-capacity backup batteries for these facilities requires aggressive, continuous mining of critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and graphite. In South America's lithium triangle, feeding the tech industry's appetite requires carving vast, unnatural grids into the desert. Miners pump and evaporate millions of gallons of brine, permanently draining ancient groundwater reserves from the local ecosystem. Achieving digital sovereignty on Earth relies on a loop of continuous extraction. Nations secure their technological supremacy by pulling finite resources in water from marginalized lands. Tech giants and national governments are preparing a radical pivot. To bypass the physical constraints of land, water, and grid capacity, they are planning to move the heaviest, most demanding compute infrastructure off the planet entirely. A rapidly expanding new space economy, driven by intense private innovation rather than traditional superpower space agencies, is projected to reach over $468 billion in value by 2026. The target destination is low Earth orbit, or LEO, a zone sitting roughly 160 to 2,000 kilometers above the ground. By the end of 2026, an estimated 15,000 to 18,000 satellites will populate this narrow band of space. Because these constellations orbit relatively close to the Earth's surface, they provide the ultra-low latency and high bandwidth required to process and transmit complex AI tasks in real time. Orbital systems now function as the primary physical infrastructure for global AI dominance, expanding their utility far beyond simple communication relays. This diagram compares the two operating environments. On the left, a terrestrial data center relies on millions of gallons of fresh water to keep its servers from melting. On the right, an orbital data center entirely eliminates water consumption, utilizing large radiators to vent heat away from the hardware into the vacuum. Furthermore, satellites in orbit have access to continuous, uninterrupted solar radiation. By harvesting power directly from the sun without atmospheric interference or nighttime interruptions, energy costs can drop by up to a factor of 10. Finally, the infinite freezing vacuum of space instantly absorbs the massive heat output of AI processors. Hardware can operate at peak efficiency without requiring toxic chemical coolants or complex liquid cooling loops. Private firms are already moving beyond theoretical designs. Early orbital compute nodes and in-space AI training protocols have successfully passed initial testing phases, proving heavy computation can survive the harsh environment of orbit. Orbital infrastructure offers a physical escape hatch from Earth's limits. The technology works. The pressing geopolitical question now is who gets to own it. Major tech monopolies view low Earth orbit as another territory to hold and commercialize. However, a highly distinct ethical framework is emerging to challenge that dominance. The concept of indigenous data sovereignty, asserts that communities hold the right to explicitly govern the collection, ownership, and application of the data that reflects their identity and worldview. This principle is the foundation of a new Canadian-led initiative, the Indigenous AI Data Centre in Space, or IADCS. The goal is to merge the capabilities of orbital compute with strict ethical Indigenous governance, ensuring the technology serves the community rather than exploiting it. This timeline charts the projected financial trajectory of the IADCS. By moving from proof of concept today to a fully deployed orbital network by 2035, the platform is structured to be globally competitive, positioned to generate between $2 and $5 billion in annual revenue. The IADCS demonstrates that space infrastructure can function as a tool for economic reconciliation, moving control away from traditional tech monopolies. The movement is driven by a specific philosophy: data as kin, not oil. This framework treats technology and the information it processes as a relationship to be stewarded, rather than a raw commodity to be aggressively mined and discarded. It positions technology as a regenerative partner. We face two distinct paths for the future of intelligence. The terrestrial path guarantees further extraction, requiring us to permanently drain local water aquifers and destabilize local power grids to maintain global competitiveness. The orbital path moves the resource demands of artificial intelligence off-world. By pushing the hardware into space, we reserve our planet's finite physical resources for the biological life that actually needs them. The trillion-dollar tech race will define the next century of human progress. Technological advancement cannot cost us the Earth.